Hey there, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Welcome, Jason. Thanks. Appreciate you being here. And Misty, Mrs. Wayne, hello. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. We're going to go ahead and get a little bit of music put on here. Music is always good. Let's see. I don't know what it is about this beat, but I love it. Absolutely love it. Lots of fun. Music is always good. All right, so okay, hopefully I got the sound down on my phone. How's everybody doing tonight? Howdy, howdy, howdy. Let's see. Hopefully my kid remembered that tonight is the night. Got a great guest for you guys. Also, let's, yep, good. Jason, thank you. Let's see. Sending one of the kids text message. Let him know it is go time. All right. If you guys have anybody you know that is subscribed, or even who isn't subscribed, tell them we're about ready to start this puppy up here. Okay. So I want to start a little bit. First off, welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate that. If y'all remember, I had a guest on, Lee Deckelman, Army Ranger, Green Beret, on, and he had written a book, and it is called Internal Volume. And this is the book. He had sent this to me, autographed it. Very generous of him. Thank you very much, Lee. I did finally get a chance to get it finished. I was reading it when I was at the Mind Over Land retreat in North Carolina. Beautiful place, beautiful people. So if you have not already picked up a copy, feel free to do so. It's out there for sale on Amazon, all in his own words. It's an absolute great book. A lot of his life really put to paper. So thank you again, Lee, for that. Much appreciated. So we're going to go ahead and get our guest on tonight. Wonderful guy. Met him actually at the Mind Over Land Veterans Day event over Veterans Day, and his name is Brian Taylor. So everybody, let's give Brian a wonderful welcome. Hi there. Can you hear okay?
I can, yes.
Awesome. I really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So, there we go. Make us all bigger.
just looks uglier on this side of my screen. That's just me.
Yeah,
Make it smaller. Make it smaller again.
Make it smaller. Let's see. Wait, what can we do?
No, it's fine.
How's that? Is that better?
I put my glasses on because I couldn't see the smaller screen, but I'll squint like Mr. Magoo. We'll make it work.
There you go. There you go. So Jason says, welcome, Brian. Great to see you again. And again, thank you for your service. Much appreciated. So why don't we go ahead and start a little bit with this is kind of how I like to start the shows, just to talk a little bit about, oh, Caleb. Hello, how are you? So this is, we have my brother, his son, Caleb is on. So he must have been my 81st subscriber. Welcome and thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the show. Hopefully you got to see your dad on last week. So, okay, so we're going to start off and just have you talk a little bit kind of about growing up, your childhood, education, what took you into the Marine Corps?
Nothing. Never made it to
not
Marine Corps.
Sorry, I'm not military. Marine comes out. I'm a Marine mom, so It just kind of flies out on occasion. Sorry about that.
I wasn't
Into
willing
the
to.
military.
I wasn't willing to give up free thinking, so I couldn't join the Marines. I was disqualified immediately. Well, growing up and what led me to the military, I think there's a couple of things that were probably pivotal moments that kind of led me, kind of down that path. One is my father was arson investigator for the state of Indiana. And, we'd have days off from school. I'd go to work with my dad. And, I spent days when he was first with the fire department. I'd spend the night out in the fire department. And as a kid, you love the big trucks and I don't know any kid that doesn't like just big equipment and fire trucks and stuff like that. And when I was younger, it was fashionable to want to grow up and be a cop or a fireman or something like that. And now it seems, less fashionable. But, there was instilled a civic duty, and that was, my dad wasn't military. His brother wasn't. So that generation, I had grandparents that were in the military and they never talked about it. So there's no influence in that direction, but there was the foundation of civic duty. You give something back for what you've been given and the freedoms and some things that we take for granted, right to assemble. In Baghdad, in Saddam's time in Baghdad, you would have been thrown off a building, arrested, if you just assembled and he thought that might be a threat. And there are things that we take for granted. So as I got into high school, my parents unfortunately had divorced and moved down to Florida from Indiana, is where I grew up. And there she met a guy that she started dating and eventually became my stepdad, who had been in the military, and he had been in the Army in Vietnam era. So that was an influence. Both my father's stepfather and my biological father were both heroes of mine. I looked up to them. I didn't look up to sports stars or actors or rap stars, though I do look up to Tom Cruise, because being on a movie set is so much like being deployed. I guess only if you're on Alec Baldwin's set, maybe, but
well, there's that.
Yeah.
How much do you think he flew? You think he got to fly in those Top Gun movies?
Not one of those jets, but flying.
I know he flies.
Flying that P-51, that at the end of the movie, that's him. That's his actual plane. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I was just kidding. He's not my hero.
He's not your hero.
No, it's like, Tom, I did all my own stunts too. Okay. And we used live bullets. So no. But moving
so did they on Rust.
Yeah. But I got into high school and I got mixed up with JROTC, and I got involved in their after school program. And I had always been, my family was very advocates of scouting, and an Explorer Scout program had sponsored our JROTC and some guys from there. So it was a National Guard Army. So most people went out and played Boy Scout at scout camps and other types of things. And we went out and played Army. We were in, camouflage, the woodland camouflage BDUs was our uniform. And we didn't set up individual tents. We set up a GP medium. And so it was something I always wanted to be one of the Green Army men. Yeah. Huge GI Joe, toy buff as a kid. And, but that was part of what I settled on. I think all the different branches offer something. It depends on what you're looking for. All of the branches offer something that's absolutely a great fit for you, or it's not. But one of the branches offers something. If you want to serve your country, one of the branches offers something most people, Air Force, some people like the Marines. For me, it was almost always the Army. The Army.
And was that because of your two dads, basically? They were both in the military, or?
One
your
one
stepfather.
wasn't. Yeah,
your stepfather in the military.
I honestly, as a kid, as a high school kid, and this, if you've got any that age that are looking, shop around a little bit, but go to your recruiters. There were things that they, Air Force, I looked at the Air Force, but they couldn't promise me an actual job. You pick one of these 5 jobs, and if that's not available, you've already signed the line, but if that's not available, you might get choice number 2 or 3. And
right.
Iron Eagle and Top Gun, that came out. So the only thing the Air Force had for me was I wanted to be a pilot. And I was like, well, if I'm not going to be a pilot, then I don't want the job. So it was unrealistic. But that was something that the Army offered, is you pick a job and we guarantee you'll get that job if you get 2 trainings. So And then I ended up renegotiating my contract while in basic training and ended up doing something a little bit different. So
how were you able to renegotiate? That's interesting.
I had a unique opportunity with, it's called the ASPAB. It's a
Hmm.
language, Armed Forces Language Aptitude Barrier, or DLAB, sorry, DLAB. It's a Defense Language Aptitude Battery. And they had a bunch of us take that class. Apparently, there were low numbers in a particular MOS, a job. And I came in as a counterintelligence agent in training to be a counterintelligence agent, and had an opportunity to go to the language school and learn a foreign language at the Army's expense. And I thought, well, that might be marketable if this Army thing doesn't work out. Then maybe I can do something with that, language ability. And so I switched jobs from that to human intelligence, and it was a language dependent, MOS, as there's a handful of those that are.
Is that an oxymoron?
Yes, I've spent over 30 years in that field, and because I'm still in the government, I've yet to find intelligence or humans in the same room. Yeah, I've got more faith in AI to become intelligent than it is for humans. So,
No.
no, it's out there. It's just we have something that the machines will never be able to fake, and that's common sense and idiocracy. What's funny thing about AI is it's actually in its learning curve to become more human, more dynamic in its thinking. It has learned how to replicate our flaws, and that has made its way into the programming and performance. So it's kind of funny that it started out as a machine and a computer and threatened us,
Yep.
and then learned how to be like us, and now it's like not as much of a threat because it can be just as much of an idiot as we can. So
Well, and a lot of it is
interesting.
based off of programming,
It does what it's
and
asked to do.
that's right. So Killian says that's pretty legit. He thought that was pretty cool. So
I gotta be able to see these comments. Sorry, I put my goggles on.
so he's our oldest, and
Okay,
he is a Marine. So
so sorry.
oh, watch the
Well,
flag's going to be flying back and forth
as a
all the
Marine,
time.
so what's in the same world there? So my career took a weird turn. I was in on the Army intelligence side, and then went into the infantry and did some things in the infantry, and then went back to Army intelligence, which I think helped me a lot more because when it operationalizes the information that you have, and you're like, oh, listen, we need to go find out if a bad guy lives at a house. Well, when you've been on the operational side of having to kick that door and go into that house, you want to know additional information about the house, and not
Prior
just,
to
well, it's a big white house painted green, 2 front doors in the back. It's easy to find. It can't be something as simple as that. For me, being on the team that has to go in and get that person or kick that door or go through a window or whatever, I want to know, is the front door breachable? Is there a way out the back? Are there tunnels in it? Are there other types? Are there booby traps? So there's a lot of things I learned as an infantryman, I think, applied to make me a little bit better or a little bit more relevant to as a human intelligence guy.
So I'm going to assume your ASVAB was fairly high.
It was okay. I don't know
It was
what a high
okay.
score.
You don't know what a high score would be?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, keep in mind, I'm dealing with a bunch of people that were in the intelligence field, so all of their scores were high. So it's really, I don't put a lot of faith in those tests. Nobody has ever made a sports team. Let's say you want to make the basketball team at your high school. You don't walk out to the 3-point line. The guy hands you a ball and says, "Okay, if you make it, you're on the team. If you don't, you're not." That's a
That's
test.
fair. That's
And
fair.
everyday common performance and stuff like that, more applicable stuff. I was always a little better at those. It's a game that you play when you do leadership stuff where you have like a barrel and a wood and a piece of rope, and you got to get across this obstacle and use these things that we've given you. I could always look at that, just put it together. Okay, we do this and get across those with no problem. I mean, they were fun, but it's like playing tic-tac-toe. After a while, there's no challenge to it mentally. It's just, and a lot of people will sit there and stare at that all day long and still fall in the water. But for me, I have more common sense. I grew up on a farm. I grew up around horses and farm equipment, and they don't really, none of those things suffer fools very long. There's not a
Right.
lot of dumb old farmers. There's a lot of dumb farmers, but they die early. So being around that equipment and being around common sense type stuff, I think I just got raised a little bit more around common sense stuff and a little less around bookie smart stuff.
Right. So Jim says, were you ever at
Yes.
Fort? Okay, say that
Yep.
name.
Fort Huachuca. Yeah.
Thank you.
Huachuca. We say Fort, we gotcha. I was actually in the latter part of my career. I retired out of Fort Huachuca, and that I was in their horse cavalry unit. They have a ceremonial cavalry unit, B Troop, 4th Regiment. It's the unit in history in the Indian War era that has credit for capturing Geronimo, or actually handling Geronimo's surrender, and then transporting him across the country back to reservations on the East Coast. And what they don't take credit for, or at least they don't advertise, is they're the ones responsible for starting the Indian War era. But they went up to arrest Cochise for a murder he didn't commit, and they came with a troop, and Cochise had an army of braves, so they decided not to arrest him that day. But
wow, that's a story, huh?
probably one of the best units I was ever in, actually. All volunteers, and and a free horse. So how do you argue with that? It's a free horse.
So you were on horseback a lot then in the Army then, or just there?
Well, just the last couple years of my career. I should have done it sooner, but as he pointed out, Fort Huachuca is a military intelligence center, at least on some level. I went to a lot of different schools around the country. A lot of those schools are on the East Coast, but at Fort Huachuca is sort of every base seems to have kind of a hub. Like you think about Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty or whatever they're calling it this week, but Fort Bragg is the home of the airborne and home of special operations. So if you were ever in special operations, you've been to Fort Bragg. You go there for selection. I went there in '92 for selection. So everybody goes there. There's at least that common ground. And if you think about tanks, you think of a base, or military police, you think of a base. Well, Fort Huachuca is military intelligence. That's their center point. So in your career, I've gone back. Let's see, I've been to Huachuca for my basic human school, AIT. I went there. Then I came back. I came back for a school to go through strategic debriefing DISDIC while I was there, then left, and then came back for warrant officer basic course. I was stationed there as an instructor, and then went to warrant officer, picked up for warrant officer, and then left and came back again for a school. And the 5th time I came back, I was stationed there to retire, and that's where I guess I wasn't stationed there to retire. I made my decision to retire while I was there.
That's fair. So Killian says already a big fan of this guy since he spent time on the infantry side of the house.
Yeah, a little both.
Yeah, so I know that connects a lot with those who were in infantry or still are as well.
It gives me a little bit of street cred, I guess.
It does. I think so. I absolutely think so.
And I did something which is a lot like what your Killian's Marine Corps. He's a Marine, right? So what I did in my career was a lot like what your HET teams will do at the embassy, the human intelligence and CI teams at the embassy. And then I think their infantry is an 0211, but they're what the mission that they have, some of the missions for Force Recon is what I did in the infantry. It's ILRPs, long range reconnaissance patrol. So observation, drop behind enemy lines, small teams. You do observation on enemy positions and other targets, and then get out on your own, report back, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And so when you first went into boot or basic, tell us a little, do you have any fun stories about things that while you were going through that basic training? Anything that you can
It's going to be a long interview if we're starting all the way back to basic. That's 1990 for me.
You're young.
I think I think everybody does. That's a funny thing about being in the military, especially when you're, around other people from your brand. Everybody has a common denominator with, a story from basic training, and everybody remembers the, Charlie 210. That was my infantry unit in basic training. But we had since I came in from Florida, even though I'm not originally from Florida, I came into the military from Florida. Our senior drill sergeant was from Florida. He's a Hispanic guy. And he kept asking me things, just inappropriate stuff like, where'd your mom go on spring break? How old are you? He said, I might be your daddy. So, and because at basic training, I've been in the military life with JROTC and the Explorer Scout unit that I was in. And so drill and ceremonies and marching, and I grew up around guns. So shooting, I was in pretty good shape. I was a wrestler and played other sports in school. So, basic training wasn't I wasn't one of those screw ups. If I made a mistake, it got corrected and we didn't do it again. So in the drill sergeant's eyes, it was basic training becomes a lot more fun when you're not somebody there riding like a rented mule. And
Right.
I wasn't that guy. And we had other guys that took their attention. But for me, our senior drill would come out in the morning for formation. He's like, Taylor, where you at, my boy? Where you at? And it was it was weird. Everyone's looking at me and like, dude, I don't know that guy. I mean, I don't know why he took a shine to me, but yeah, it was always kind of funny. And other drill sergeants would ride me for something because I was a little bit of a smart ass. And
No.
yeah, we'd make a joke about something and I would start doing push-ups because he dropped a buddy of mine and he said, well, Taylor, Private Taylor, you need to recover. I said, I can't do that drill. I just disobey him. Just say no. So he's got me in the front leaning rest doing push-ups and he's like, get up. And I said, no, I can't do it. I can't have Private Sunderman do more push-ups than me. We got a $5 bet who could do the most push-ups in the day. And he got dropped for something he did stupid. So I just got in formation. I just dropped in formation and started doing push-ups. So there was kind of a fun game where it's like the drill sergeants realized that one, we weren't screw-ups, and two, they couldn't break us. And whenever a drill sergeant would yell at me, the senior drill would yell at him, go, hey, get off. That's my boy. That's my boy. Leave him alone. That's my son. So it was kind of funny.
Well, at least you had that. So,
Yeah.
there's always family somewhere. Killian says, yeah, strap in, brother. She wants to know it all within security clearance, of course.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, we'll see about that. See where the conversation leads. If she starts talking with a Russian accent, we're going to stop, right? I'm going to have an immediate problem with that.
Spasiba.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only Russian I think I know. I am part, but
I could teach you some things that would embarrass your Russian friends. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know that. I'm sure they probably have some. It's just not one of those questions that you ask, right?
Yeah.
Are you Russian?
Well, especially not nowadays. You're like, hey, how you doing? You're in the military. Are you Russian? Yeah. That's doesn't go over real good.
That's exactly right. So how long in total were you in the military?
I had a break in service, which was weird. I had, which I'm sure Killian or anybody else that's been in military settings and units, sometimes you got good leadership and sometimes you don't. And I had a run of very weak non-commissioned officers and stuff above me when I was E4, E3, and I made it up to a point where I thought, well, I don't know if the Army's for me or not. And I got out, and then right at the end, I started getting some good NCOs and things changed, but I had already my mind up. So I got out and then immediately got in with the National Guard and did active duty with the National Guard doing counter drug work for about 2.5 or so years. And so I had an actual break in service in 97, and then 98, I'd gotten married during that time. I married my high school sweetheart. I'm pointing to her. She's over there. Married my high school sweetheart. So getting out of the military was good. I got out of Europe. I came back to my small town. I had a chance to meet Annie, my wife, and then she gave me the advice. She's like, listen, the only thing you ever talked like you were happy about was military. Get back in it. So I got back on active duty in 98. So I had break in service, but altogether 22 years I was in.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the scheme of things, probably not so long. I'm sure it goes fast and just in general, but
sometimes faster than others. What's funny is that I make the comment, like if the last 10 years have been like the first 10 years, because we had then 2001 and then everything kind of changed for the military. We weren't just getting college bennies and PX privileges. My dogs have joined us. Come on, girl.
Yes.
But
she's like, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, she goes with her sister. They had 2 dogs. We have 2 shepherds from the same litter, and she goes everywhere her sister goes. But they're always curious. Yeah, there she is.
She's a cutie.
So Whiskey, because she has a bite. And the other one's Bear because she's a polar bear, and she'll come in here in a second. But when you got into the military, you decided, well, I want to do this forever, or you didn't, and things just kind of come to a stop. But had I not gotten back and met my wife, and then she would have been the catalyst to get me back in the military. It's funny how things just kind of line up that way. You couldn't plan it. I couldn't have scripted my life like this, but it gave me a chance to do, when I got out, I got to work, counter drugs. So I got to work with U.S. Marshal Service and DEA. And I was essentially a source for law enforcement to buy and sell drugs and do other types of narcotics investigations and stuff like that. So it was a very unique opportunity. And then fast forward, getting back in the military, and now what am I doing? I'm back in working with the government and law enforcement and stuff like that. So it's funny how everything just kind of paralleled and prepared me for the next. Yeah, it's just one big continuous loop. So
Yeah.
an inescapable black hole. That's what we call Fort Huachuca. It's a black hole. But
Oh, that's funny. Let's see. So Jim said the Ann Taylor. I'm not sure what that is about.
no, not. I wish I had that kind of money. You're talking about the clothing store, Ann Taylor.
Maybe he might be.
Yeah. And now Annie is short for Annette. No, it's not the Ann Taylor.
Ah, got it. Okay, now I know where he was going with that.
Unless you know her, maybe you know. Are you from Martinsville, Indiana? Hopefully you don't know her. That's going to get awkward.
That's funny. I didn't know that he is, but he did say that he knew at Camp Huachuca Jen McAfee and Roy Fox. I don't know if you know who they are.
Now that Jen McAfee sounds familiar, though. I mean, it is a small world. The thing about the intel world is it's relatively small, and it's a high likelihood. And I think with the Marines, for that side of things, there's usually one question that you ask when you find a guy. You're like, is he an East Coast or a West Coast? Because you could spend your whole life in the Marine Corps and never see the other half of the Marine Corps if you're an East Coaster and never been West Coaster. So that's it. Come here, Bear. Come here. There's Bear.
Oh, white.
Hi, Bear.
Pretty.
Yeah. Okay, Bear. That's enough. She's invasive.
She's like,
She's an invasive species. But
Ron,
yeah,
welcome. Appreciate you being here. Ron Wayne says, thank you for your service, Brian.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Killian said, heck, man, you need a guy to teach your dudes as a marksmanship instructor.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's one of the things. We could tease each other as much as we want, but there's always underlying reality. And the Marines crank out some good marksmen.
And he is an instructor.
But it's funny how many Marines I meet that were all like force recon snipers. And I'm like, I'd like to put all those guys in one room. It's just we have that thing with guys that run the gut trucks that show up out at the ranges so that you can stop and buy some meals while you guys are out shooting in the field. And the guy driving the gut truck is always a retired SF Sergeant Major. And I'd like to see the list of people who are actual SF Sergeant Majors and compare that to the list of current people living that tell people that they're SF Sergeant Majors, because I think that list is a little bigger than what's actually out there. But
oh, that's interesting.
Marines all claim to be force recon, which I don't understand. I was a Marine Corps sniper, scout sniper. It's like, okay. But in our world, so the intel world is huge, it's a big family, and within that are all the different intelligence disciplines, and then there's human intelligence, and then there's human intelligence that do a strategic mission, and then there's the tactical, normal, I was in the 82nd kind of guys, and then there's dudes that are working with USASOC, the Special Operations Command, and I mean, at one time in my career, you could put everybody in the world that's doing my job in a large living room. So we all know each other. And that's where you meet guys, you run into people like Seth, guys you'll meet on some of these next talks going up. Is it used to be a family. And then, 2001 started and USASOC and the family and everything got bigger. Everything got bigger. The machine got huge.
That's awesome, though. So I take it you are still in contact with a lot of those that you went through, say, basic with, or not at all? Not a one. I guess it's just an assumption that I have, and I have been like so off on that.
Yeah, I don't know how many.
Been like, no.
How many guys you get on here, gals that are in contact? I mean, they make stories up when you're a basic trainer. They're like, dude, we're going to get together 10 years from now, have a reunion. We're going to Cancun. And as soon as you graduate basic training, it's just, I mean, it's like holding up one of those dried dandelions in the wind. We just scatter and never look back. And now I had some guys that I saw at DLI. So I spent a little over a year at Monterey, California, going through a Defense Language Institute with guys I went to basic training with. And then one by one, I found that those dudes just kind of, they just stopped. My last deployment, which was kind of funny, there was a guy from my very first military unit was there as a civilian, Department of the Army civilian. It's called a MICEP. He does intel work, but he's a civilian employee GS for the Army. And he was there. He was in my very first military unit over in Germany when I first got in the Army. And in addition to him, there's a contractor working in what's called the ACE. It's the floor where they do the intelligence analysis and all that kind of stuff comes together. So it's just a sea of cubicles. And then as I walked in, because I was the USD South human operations cell chief, I walked in and somebody stood up in the back here and like, Brian, and that's a person from my very first unit. So it was like it was almost like a farewell tour. It was like, okay, it's time to retire. We're done. That's good.
That's it. That was the turning point for you. Oh,
two guys, funny. Two people, from a female that was in my unit, and then this guy. So, which I tried to tear his ear off playing tackle football way back in the day, but suddenly, I guess time heals all wounds. That dude thought we were buddies. He's a good guy, but yeah, we weren't friends. I mean, just in the same unit together.
So, can you talk about where all you were stationed overseas, or a couple of places?
Well, I can talk about some of them. Some of them, the fact that I was there, I mean, given my job, that is still not considered declassified. So I've worked in, whether it was, 1 week, 2 weeks, or 6 months, or a year, or whatever, I've worked in 25 different countries. I was stationed in Germany on 2 occasions for about half my career. So about seven or so years. And then back when stationed at Fort Bragg, there was a period there. I was there about 7 years. And I think the longest I was home for any one stretch was 4 months. So that's why I made that joke about if the last part of my career had been like the first career, I stayed in 30, maybe 40 years, until he kicked me out. But it got to a point where about 11 years of our marriage, I was gone for 7 of it, 4 months at a time, 6 months at a time. I got tired of my kid calling the Schwann's food guy daddy. So I was like, well, we got to put a stop to that. But it was, I went to Germany.
It wasn't the male guy.
Yeah. He's blonde hair, blue eyed. That's weird, right? You guys looking at that? Yeah. So, but I went to stationed in Germany, but worked in several countries. So I've done operations on the overt side in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the Balkans, throughout the Balkans. I was in the Balkans before we were in the Balkans. So I was there 91 to 93, and we didn't officially go there as a U.S. force and KFOR and all that stuff until 93, I think. But documenting mass graves and genocide and evidence of people just being horrible to each other on both sides. We went and did some of that kind of stuff with an SF unit that I was supporting. So,
nice. So how many different languages do you speak?
Couple.
Russian?
Russian. I went to school for Russian. Ich kenne nur ein klein bisschen Deutsch.
Okay,
I can speak a little German conversationally. I can get around. There was a time where you could drop me in Russia and I could go on with my life. Now it's not so much. But then, of course, you pick up some things along the way. I think it's very important. I try to be a good diplomat when I'm overseas. I try to represent well. I get involved in the culture. I never lived on the military base. Even when I was a single soldier, the first time I moved over there, they had a improving quality of life sort of movement at that time where they allowed 2 E4s to move in together and share BOQ and stuff like that. So I ended up moving right out of the barracks as quick as I could. I like living on the economy and being immersed in the culture that I'm a part of. And I like Germany. I got along with Germany, especially Bavaria. I was in Bavaria the first time. Yeah, that's what when we picture the Hofbrauhaus and Oktoberfest and the Papa bands and Lederhosen, that's all Bavaria. The rest of Germany is not so nice, but not as nice, I should say. But we don't have any Germans on, do we? I can't see the list of people, but
it's hard to know. They all have aliases. It's all good.
But I did some work in Romania, so it's important to see, Bună dimineața, to be able to say hi and greetings in a language, or order food and say thank you, and just try to be a good diplomat and represent the country. They see enough of the drunk Americans down at the Green Goose, which is a club that's always in some German towns, and it's always an absolute meat locker. It's basically an American bar that Germans show up to. And
Because of good entertainment.
yeah, I mean, fights. And if you're into the meat locker type of a place, not my scene, not my scene, but
Right. That was awesome though, you know so many different languages. Now, out of the countries that you spoke of, do you have a favorite one that you would want to go back and visit?
I don't know if I'd want to go back and visit because I'm in the business now of tracking threats all over the world and domestically. So I do stay in touch with that, and it's one of those things. It's like I get that alert that says your passport expired, and I'm like, yeah, let it. I'm good. I'm good with that actually. Strangely, but actually, Lagos, Nigeria. I think as far as beauty goes, I was in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I went there to kind of be the mouthpiece to help the Russians to kind of negotiate through the port and get to KFOR. And if you remember the history, the first band of Russians that went there and then they promptly got into the Balkans, tried to take over an airfield, almost started World War III. It was those Russians. So you can thank me for letting them in, I guess. But I received them at the port and did translations and stuff like that for the British that ran the logistics there. And I think to go back and visit for the beauty and history of the place, Thessaloniki, Greece. But to go for the people, I did a State Department contract. That's when I got out of the military, working with, I don't know what you call them this week. They're changing names as much as anybody, as much as our military bases. But it was Blackwater, and then it became something else, and then it was Academy.
It was try something or other. I was reading this book and he was part of it. So he was part of Blackwater, and then he was something that they changed to, like the new company got the contract for.
And so I work for that same company. It's a lot of teams guys and a lot of people that they know, and a guy like I got the application for that job. Somebody called me and said that there's a job opening. I didn't apply to that. I've gotten a couple jobs that way when I was playing the contracting world. And it's just, they call you up, and when you're, my advice to anybody younger, starting your life out, take care of your name, take care of your reputation, do the right thing. And no matter how bad it hurts, do the right thing. Because that will endure. You may suffer a ding right there in the moment, but in the long game, somebody will call you up one of these days and go, that was a good dude. He's a team guy. He's somebody we want. And that's what happened with that job. So my background, some of the stuff that I've done over the years was in hostage recovery type work and support to those guys. So they called me to go do a narco terrorism sort of analytic support and teach their version of the DEA how to do intelligence analysis and targeting, and then with a little bit of a hostage recovery because of Boko Haram slant. But the people in Lagos, Nigeria were absolutely amazing. Some of the most warm and receptive people I've ever been around. I mean, so Lagos, Nigeria is probably one of my favorites.
And there's a lot of places. He said cough, triple canopy cough. Yeah. And the funny thing is, it is in Lee Deckelman's book, and how it came about for him, because he was Blackwater, and then, ended up that contract went away. He came back stateside, and then Triple Canopy and popped up. They got the newest contract, and so
they took over for embassy security. So when you go through in the international zone, you have Marines that man the checkpoint, and then inside where you get onto the embassy compound, at least the way it were, you had civilian contractors, and they did have. I don't know if it was Blackwater or who had that, but it was Nepalese soldiers, not Gurkhas, but Nepalese that they had contracted, Nepalese military and other guys, and then they switched out, and Triple Canopy won the contract. And Triple Canopy showed up with two countries down in South America that are actually at war with each other. It's like a Nicaragua so he's got two guys that are stationed, one from country X and one from country Y, and they are stationed together, paired up at the front door, the front desk of the embassy. And this was Saddam's old palace when we had the embassy in 2005. And these dudes start talking football, and that is we're talking round ball football, soccer, and they get fired up about it because that's stuff that will take a country to war. And these dudes end up getting in a fight, leveling weapons at each other. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. So they had to get broken up, and like as we're walking through and they're breaking this up, we're kind of like, yeah, they're not going to keep the contract for long. This was a 1 year. That's done.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
Triple Canopies, which is sad because there's a bunch of good dudes working Triple Canopy. It's just they hired this third country national to step in, and they put two guys on there that were at odds with each other. So
That is just crazy. And you were there to kind of witness that.
oh, I just walk by, keep my head down, and try not to get involved. We just yeah, I live back there. It's just not my deal. Just keep walking.
Oh my gosh, that is insane. But yeah, I know football, like American football, causes a lot of fights, especially in bars. So I can only imagine how football, the round ball, as you say.
Oh, those guys, they start riots. They storm the field. It's crazy. It's a
Oh
sport.
wow.
It's just a sport. I don't get it.
Right? I know. So you spent a lot of time in the military. When you were transitioning to become a civilian, uh, what resources, if any, were you able to access?
Yeah, so our ACAP program, Army Career Alumni Program, take advantage of all of that. I mean, if this is a section of your show where I give you advice to future getting out of the Army people or getting out of the military in general, but try to project as far down the road as you can. I had a unique opportunity where they did my retirement calculations wrong. And so it was like, you owe time, like you're going to retire and not be at 20. And I was like, oh, so I pumped the brakes on that, pulled that back in. And by the time we put in the correct paperwork, I had a year. And that year I spent going, I mean, there was about 2 weeks in a row where I was the 9 o'clock appointment at my medical center. Because you can only go in for one thing at a time. So it's, on Monday, it's my ankle, and on Tuesday, it's my knee, and on Wednesday, it's bang my head. And so we went in, but get those things documented and line that up. That would be number one, is take care of you. And especially being a warrant officer, being an airborne guy, being at Fort Bragg, all that stuff, you didn't go on sick call. You damn sure weren't on profile, so,
Yeah.
But that means at the end of there's no competition where you get an award at the end because your medical file was only this thick, but you're broken. You're broke as hell. You got lots of little stuff. You carried a pack. You jumped in a ditch. You jumped out of the back of a truck. You threw heavy things up in the truck. You did physical stuff. Let them compensate for you for that. I mean, honestly, take advantage of that. But then the very next thing that you do is start lining up how to write a resume, how to write. That was some of those classes that we went to on the getting out of the Army transitioning side of the house. And it doesn't matter if you're retiring or just getting out, they'll set up these appointments for you. Take full advantage of all that stuff. Go down to your education center, start looking at things. If you haven't knocked out your degree, so for me, I got a bachelor's degree because we had our MOS training was accredited and at a local college and all that kind of stuff. Well, you tack that onto CLEP tests that I took because I had an officer that was looking out for me, and he said, hey, go down, this ed center is about to close. Go down and take advantage of that. And I was in a counter drug program, and my partner was a lieutenant, and he kept pushing all that kind of, get your degree, get this done, get this knocked out. And you might not need it for the military, but you will need to put some paper on the wall if you want to get in the civilian world and be paid. You're not going to be able to rest on just your military experience. It's that plus a 4-year degree or whatever you need for that job if you're shooting for something technical like that. But for me, I got an associate's degree without sitting in classroom a single day. Everything was either tested out. So I got 24 credit hours just by taking CLEP tests. Take the CLEP book, the study book, take it home for a weekend or two, read that thing, get boned back up on basic math or humanities or basic science or something like that, English, parts of speech and all that kind of, you got to refresh that in your mind and then go down to your ed center and take a CLEP test. That's 6 credit hours of a course you didn't use your money on and you didn't sit and waste your time on. And if it's something like English, unless you're going to be an English teacher or along those lines, you just need to be proficient in English to write papers. And if you can master, there's no reason for us to be sitting in English if you know how to speak English, if you're good, So I had to test along the way, I think 4 times to prove I know English. And we do an immense amount of report writing. I'm an editor professionally for report writing. I'm a release authority for professional intelligence reports. I can't believe I just kept having to take, the college would say, yeah, I don't know. And I'd have to take a placement test. And then they go, oh, well, apparently you do speak college level English. And I just don't sound like that because I'm a hill jack little redneck from the woods. So I don't, I don't use concomitant and vernacular and things like that in my language because I think it sounds a little bit precocious and I don't want to sound that way. And
it does, the little snooty.
But yeah, to work on translating your military career to civilian something, whatever that is. And the other mastery thing that you do when you're writing a resume is look at the job that you're applying for and pick out the words, the action words that you're saying. We're looking for somebody who has managed people. Then in your resume, you write managed people. I mean, steal their stuff, use their words against them. But there was classes that kind of taught you about that. And networking, that's always been a big part of it. Network everything, because some dude in the military has a pool of applicants and he notices one guy was, hey, he was in the Army too. I'm going to gravitate to that guy. We got something in common. I know he knows how to present himself well. I know he knows how to show up on time, look good in a uniform if that's the case, represent my company and my interest and follow orders. And that in the civilian world that's worth more than a college degree most days. But my bachelor's degree, I sat in one class and I tested out of the rest of it, or the life experience that translates from military schooling and stuff like that. So it always cracks me up. People are like, government should pay for my college. I'm like, bullshit. Join the Army like I did. I got college paid for, but honestly got my college to go take a test, and check off the block and test all that stuff. But that's not for everybody. I do like to sit in a classroom, but yeah, I needed shortest distance between points and put paper on a wall. That's what I needed when I was.
That's right. So. Jim says key points you just made. Resume may not even get looked at if you don't have buzzwords at a certain level in it. To a certain level.
It used to be what they called Resumix. It would scan your documents, so it's not even a human being that's advancing you to the next level. And I'm sure with AI and some other stuff, you've got to sell one or two levels of non-humans who are not experts in your field in order for your resume to sit in front of a manager or somebody who's going to actually interview you. So being able to write effectively, I talk good, I write gooder. So being able to, I remember when I was doing some cool guy sneaky stuff for as low rank as I was, because speaking Russian as well as I did, I could speak Serbo-Croatian. It's a pretty easy, like Dobry den is how you say, good day in Russian. Dobar dan is how you say it in Serbo-Croatian. So they're very close. So it's like a redneck from southern East Texas is talking to a guy from Scotland. It's both English, but not really, so they can kind of talk to each other. And then one dude's like, hop in my truck. And the other dude's like, we'll get into a lorry. And so you're not really talking the same language, but it's similar. And I remember looking out and I'm briefing on our activities, the general officer level and senior officers. And I'm like, hey, y'all, this is what Milosevic is picking to do. And you could tell they were just checked out. They heard that redneck accent, because at that time I didn't have the stripes, I didn't have the dots, I wasn't a warrant officer, I wasn't. So they looked at me, and how I presented the information was more important than what I had to say. And so I learned to whitewash my accent, talk a little bit less rednecky, and say words like concomitant and ilk and sound educated, because we got a lot of dudes that wear sweaters around their neck and hang out at the yacht club. And that's that East Coast Virginia, I'm better than you type of, that's what's in the CIA, that's what's in the State Department, and that's what is in those senior ranks a lot. And I got to brief them. And I was a dude that threw some red men in, painted my face, and I went to go play with those guys. Then you fast forward a few years, and I'm working with some dudes now doing the hostage recovery stuff. We're doing HVT type work with JSOC and USASOC and SOCOM and the special ops, the top tiers. These are guys they make video games and movies about. And I remember briefing them, and I was like, my redneck accent had kind of snuck back in over the years. I got more comfortable in my own skin, but now I got 3 dots. I got, so I'm being cocky. I'm like, hey y'all, this is what the Taliban's picking to do. And I remember a dude sitting in the back. He was a admiral, and he spits in a cup, and he's like, go on, boy. And I remember like, go on with your briefing. And I remember looking at that thinking, I'm home. I found my right people. I found where I needed to be. So
That's great. That's great. So you retire from the military.
yeah.
You then end up in a government job.
Yeah, I did some contracting for a bit. And the idea of being a mercenary, because usually the customer is our government. And I just can't see charging them for what they gave me for free and then gave me an opportunity to get better at it by deploying. I just can never sat well with me. So I'm still a government servant. I still want to serve people instead of serving them overseas. Now I serve them local. I work with DHS.
Nice. Nice. That is
Some days.
well, if you have that drive to help people, which you do, it really makes a difference. And it helps you also get through the day because you remember what your purpose is and why you're there.
Yeah, 30
So-
years of government, and I'm finding it hard to finish this administration. Isn't that weird?
Nothing
tough.
weird about it.
Just tough. And I worked for the executive branch, DHS. So the president is our ultimate boss. And I'm like, wow. So it's tough. And it's tough to see. There are 12 guys that do my job, like 12 apostles. I work for the INA, which is intelligence and analysis and stuff. And we're looking for domestic terrorists and foreign terrorist organizations and things like that. So it's an important job. And it's one nobody else is really doing. I mean, the FBI will pick it up and run it as an investigation and stuff like that. But actually going out, gathering information and looking at it, we're doing that. We're filling a niche. But there are times that I've seen, and it's not been our specific organization, like Portland, for example, the riots and stuff that was going on in Portland. And some of these guys decided to lean across the line because they're Georgetown University master's degree thumbsuckers with no experience. And when they talk about the gray area is called the Constitution. It's not a gray area. It's pretty black and white. So, I always harken back to those things that I took, just like a knight that takes his knee and becomes a knight on the battlefield. I took those things serious, and my oath I took very serious. And all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's like, listen, until they throw a rock, they're a U.S. citizen. And I'll be damned if you guys are going to do anything that's going to violate somebody's rights. I don't care what political agenda you want to push down the road. So there's me and one other guy that used to always bring that up on national level calls with our undersecretary for intelligence or other guys. They're like, we need to, there's a little bit fuzzy. And like, no, sir, that is not fuzzy. That's not fuzzy at all. It's protected First Amendment or it's not. Right. There's no gray area. So we used to put the kibosh on a lot of good idea fairies as they fly by.
And so I also want to thank you for protecting our Second Amendment, our First Amendment, all of the Constitution as a whole. Thank you for that. We at least know somebody's out there watching our backs, people. So
I'm going to need a lot more help. It's not just me, hopefully. It's not just me.
No, I got you. I got your back. That's always a conversation that will take us hours and hours. So, but I agree 100%. And it's one of those, you can't just because you don't like them or you don't like what they say or how they look, that just does not count. You can't, you can't just say, nope, we're not going to do this, or we're going to do this and do something because we don't like what you said. But it's
frustrating for military, especially that have deployed as much, and you get a chance to see how other countries do it. We may not be as great as we can be, but we are certainly greater. And that perspective gives you fantastic perspective, just to be able to look back. But then when you see how they're managing, how the normal everyday civilian is just living their life and the things they're taking for granted and stuff. And it really hurts the people that are like, look, I didn't get spit on in an airport. I didn't have that Vietnam era type of a reception, but I have to sit there and listen to how stupid the intelligence world is. And you guys made mistakes and you're this, and you know what? He's entitled to his opinion. The tough thing is what happens when we no longer, like, you can't have a problem with the Second Amendment if there's no Constitution. Can't have an amendment for something that doesn't. So be careful what you wish for and all these freedoms and stuff, and not exercising any level of responsibility or intelligence when we're voting. We're picking some real winners. I mean, some idiots. And these are people that are going to advance an agenda. It breaks my heart. The fact is, like, seriously, I gave 22 years of my life and almost my life several times I'm broken. I got things. I had the back of my vehicle blown off. I've had nights and family time that I've sacrificed in order to do this. And this is what you do with it. I mean, it's tough,
Yep.
but there was always that mentality. Like, we vote early November, and then, on Tuesday we all go vote and we go to bed. And on Wednesday we wake up and we check the news. And if our guy won, we're like, yay. And if our guy didn't, we went, well, shit. But we went to work on Wednesday and went back to work.
Yep.
We've forgotten that, and we need to get back, I think, to that mentality.
Yeah, I agree.
I get off my soapbox. I'm not running for
Well,
office, by the way.
maybe you should.
Yeah,
But I do agree with a lot of what you've just said, and it's a matter of just recognizing that we can all agree to disagree
yeah.
and move on. But
Well, and ultimately,
that's just
life's a team sport. We seem to have forgotten that we're a
Yeah.
pack animal. And you may not like other packs and other animals. We're not talking about forced integration and living together
Right.
with people you don't like, but with the people that are like you, that you do like, whatever commonality that you might share, live with them. We got rid of our front porches and started living in the backyard. And that was the demise of America, quite honestly.
yeah.
We need to go back to being, integrated and pack animals, and realize life's a team sport. But hard times, create hard men. Hard men create easy times. Easy times
Yeah.
create easy men. Easy men create hard times. This is cyclic. Eventually, that's our number one commodity as Americans, is our ingenuity, but our ability to just eventually have enough, suck it up, and make a change. And we will eventually suck it up and just go, nope, and put ourselves up by our bootstraps and go right back to work. And I believe that. Otherwise, I'd be a pessimist.
Right.
But,
And we're all waiting for that moment.
yeah.
So how did you get involved with, so you're involved with a nonprofit?
Yeah. A couple, actually, but you're talking about Mind Overland.
I am talking about Mind Overland. So what other are you involved in?
Well, we do very elaborate, what I started to show you here is we just had a planning meeting yesterday, which that is all of our ideas for an very elaborate Halloween that we do. Like, it's Disney. I dare Disney to do it on my budget. But we did scaffolding that went up and over a guy's drive, and it was all a castle. And we took a little Home Depot dragon that puffed out a little bit of smoke that we affectionately call dong smoke because of where they put the pipe smoke into this guy. And we took it apart and put a 2000 PSI CO2 blast. And so we took everything up a notch. And so we donate that to Dragonfly, which is pediatric cancer patients. It's to help offset costs for families that are going through that, give them some sense of normalcy, give them a night out on the town, go to a ball game, pay for a couple of meals, whatever we can do along the way to help them out. And we were able to raise, so just as a private get together and do it, it was kind of cool, about $2,000 for them in one night over Halloween. But Mind Overland is another one that we do. I got involved with that because I know Seth. I helped Seth. We met at Fort Bragg, and Seth is an old friend, and he's a good friend. He's one of those that's just always been there. And I helped Seth with his warrant officer packet when he was at Fort Bragg. And we stayed in touch, even though we kind of went in different places and different times. But he calls me up and asked me if I wanted to get involved with this group. And it was, he asked me actually to run a check on the group that this was previously involved with. It was True Patriot Initiative. He goes, is this one of them whack jobs that the government's watching? And I said, no, it's legit. We don't know who those guys are. They seem like they're legit. But next I get a phone call about this group, and he wanted me to go out on one of the rides. And it's a 501c3, so it's a not-for-profit, nonprofit organization. And we take vets and use overlanding and outdoor, adventure, vehicle-based adventures as a medium to get vets out, off the pavement and into the woods and out of the four walls and into the forest and trees, and get around the campfire, enjoy some driving, and get around the campfire and just, we'll tease each other. If you're Coast Guard, we're going to ride you pretty hard. We ride the Air Force guy pretty hard. And then a Coast Guard guy showed up, and we're like, woo, you could hear him sighing relief. He's like, finally, I'm not the target. And now I hear in an upcoming ride, we're going to have actually our first member of Space Force. And there's going to be no end to that.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's like, do you have a radio in your car or a tricorder, or what do you guys have? So it's going to be fun to tease them. But we'll tease you till you cry, and then we sit around the fire and lick our wounds and have some bourbon and laugh again. And honestly, it's about the time around the fire. And from a very self-righteous point of view, and I guess a misdiagnosed sort of point of view, I looked at this opportunity, and he said, "Do you want to come help vets?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll help some poor vet that needs it." It's me that needs it, Carolee. That was the most amazing revelation. Is I missed my tribe. I missed being out around military guys because I don't have a lot of people that had that military, especially my military background, to have
Right.
20 years in and to have gone some of the places and done some of the things. I missed hanging out with those guys and gals, and it's irreplaceable. There's nothing I've found that can fill that void. So it's been incredibly rewarding. And that's, yeah, I didn't come to help. I did come to help, but as it turns out, I'm the one that needs that help. I miss that.
And it's become a family.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Killian says he's going to need some dates for some of these. He's actually
mindoverland.org, our website. Go to mindoverland.org. So just how it sounds, mind like a brain. He's a Marine, right? So we'll have to type it real slow and send it to you. But it's Mind Over Land, like mind over matter, Mind Over Land and .org, and you'll find an events page and just pick one. We're based out of the Southeast, so kind of in and around Fort Bragg, because that's where some of the guys are. And yeah, check that out. We got a listing of all of those. Sign up. It's no charge to you. If you bring your own vehicle, we'll ask for $50 up front, but that's just to make sure that you're serious about committing, because if you back out at the last minute, then that took up a spot for another vehicle. But we pay for your gas while you're out on the trail. You'll show up Friday night, and then we'll ride Saturday, all day Saturday, and then ride most of the day Sunday. We get out, to cut you loose, so that you can get back to work or get back home where you're coming from. But while you're out there, we cover coffee in the morning for breakfast. You don't get a body like mine by missing breakfast. So I do breakfast at my tent, but everybody else, it's just coffee, communal coffee. Then we'll do a lunch along the way, free of charge. And then we cover down on a hot dinner. If you don't have a tent, we'll find one. You don't have a vehicle, we got an empty seat. There's no excuse. We want absolutely nothing as an obstacle between getting you and your ass off the pavement and into a chair and out around the fire next to some other people that have been there. And we don't take people that aren't vets. So a loved one, spouse, or brother or something like that. Nope, this is only vets. So when you get out there,
with the exception of Veterans Day, is that correct?
Right? Yeah, Veterans Day.
And that's where Jason and I were able to go.
Yeah, super. And that's a good. We're trying to talk them into it. They want to stay true to the mission, but I think they do realize. Like my wife came with me on the Veterans Day and was just eyes were open. She goes, "Now I see why you enjoy these so much," which opens up the bank account a little bit for me to buy toys to go out and play with the guys a little bit more. But yeah, before my wife has not gone out at all. So here we've got a Jeep Gladiator rooftop tent, all the gear. I can have a hot shower. I've got a bathroom, a hot shower, a bed, tent, food, everything. And she's never gone out and really experienced that because it's all been veterans only. So we're hoping down the road that the program can kind of evolve to include maybe one other time a year. So maybe Veterans Day and then a January, February trip or something like that we can do an off cycle and do a trip with spouses and for sponsors as well, because I handle their strategic sponsorship. So if you guys know anybody in your network that owns a business or works at a place that they want to reach out, they want to be able to pass them my contact information. It's Brian, BRIAN at mindoverland.org. Just shoot me an email with the contacts and I'll take care of it from there. But that's what they brought me on to do now, is to help facilitate strategic partners and be able to get these the monies offset, because these trips cost $2,000-$3,000 a piece, and we do 6 of them a year. So we rely on that. Yeah, perfect. That's it.
I can type at least.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I have to say, it really opened our eyes, mine especially. And it was, first of all, I didn't expect to go. This channel for me, it's based, it's for the veterans, right? It's for helping them to hear other stories, to know they're not alone, to be able to try different resources that somebody else might have had. And so when I saw on Facebook this mind overland. I thought, and that's kind of how I got to know you guys. Was I sent a message and Chad responded because I wanted to know, hey, can I put a little something out there on my channel? He's like, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I put it out there, never heard anything more about it, didn't think about it. And like a couple weeks later, I get this message going, well, are you going to be here? I was like, well, I'm not a veteran. And he's like, no, that's fine. I was like, well, we don't have a camper. We don't have a tent. So Chad was the one who said, I've got a spare tent. It's kind of what we do.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Good.
okay. So we thought, this will be great because for one, I mean, we are so new, obviously. I mean, we actually hit 81 subscribers as of today.
Nice.
I know. When we hit 100, by the way, for all of you paying attention out there, when we hit 100 subscribers, I do have some giveaways. So just putting that out there. I've got a gift card, t-shirt, tumbler. So want to make sure to get that out there as well. 82. Oh, 82 subscribers. Woohoo. Thank you,
Yeah,
DJ.
moving up.
I know. I'll take it. So of course, I wasn't prepared. I did bring business cards. That's about all I had that I had created on the fly. And so, come next year, or if I'm invited back, I will make sure I've got my banner. I've got
I can tell you right now, you're already invited back.
Awesome.
You're already invited back. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's these things that we can only self-promote so far. I only have my network that I can reach out to, but if I can reach you and you're in my network and we can have access to your network, then that's 82
Absolutely.
now. That's 82 people plus people you'll meet along the way at the grocery store and other places. And I mean, there's a lot of good programs out there for veterans. There really are. But quite honestly, there's not enough. There's not enough. There simply isn't enough. And it's just a sheer.
Well, people's networks are so small that they don't know of all of these. And so, Mind Over Land, I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And I think we know our phones listen, right? We just all know this. We say something and the next thing you know, ads are popping up for whatever it is you were talking about. And I really think that's what happened. Was I started this channel. We started talking amongst ourselves about veterans and so on. And then pretty soon I'm getting all of these veteran things popping up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's how I found you guys. So
that's why you won't find one of those like Siri or that little Google thing in my house. So take it from a guy who's been an intelligence professional for 30 years. When you say, Siri, turn on the lights, what you're really trying to say is, China, turn on the lights. And we won't let that into the house. My wife is probably worse of a conspiracy theorist on that side of it. But no, the networking thing is absolutely important. I mean, what really helps when especially in the veteran community, you got a lot of tough guys, and that's guys and gals. You got a lot of people that are just like, well, suck it up, buttercup. I mean, you're getting older. It's going to hurt.
That's what you were trained.
And it's just to put your head down and endure is yes, when that's the option, where it is, I've got to get to mission accomplishment, I've got to do this, but we're not talking about that. You got to turn that part of your brain off. We're talking about life, and life shouldn't suck. Life shouldn't hurt. Life shouldn't be about being alone. We're pack animals. Go find the rest of your tribe, because we're still out there.
Right. Killian has a question. He says, so if I know for sure I'm getting out of the military in April, can I make an early trip or two?
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't matter. It's not just for veterans. Like one of our guys, so our founders, there's 3 guys on the founders side. Seth, which you've already heard me talk about, my friend, is retired Army. The other guy, Chad, that you heard Carolee talk about, is retired Navy. He was a senior chief petty officer. He's very petty, and he is very petty. Like he is mastered being petty. And then the third guy is he's a reservist still, but he works for a 4-star general, and he is the E9 equivalent in the Air Force, or Air Suggest. Let's be honest. It's a command master sergeant, I think is what they call those cats. And we call him Sergeant Major. We don't care. But that dude is still in.
I think I got him. Was he greeting vehicles as they were coming in?
Big guy, kind of a little bit of I don't do a lot of PT build. but a tall guy, Jonathan. He's got the North Carolina accent
There's
going on.
Jonathan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Jonathan. And then one of the guys that's becoming more and more involved with us, he's kind of in my status where he's brought on as cadre, but he's not really one of the founders. And that's John. John's he's about to make 06. He's be a captain in the Navy, and which is a big deal because that's a tough rank to make in the Navy anyway. But so these guys, we got dudes that are still in. So yeah, by all means, come out. As long if you can take leave, you can get away that weekend. Keep in mind our trips. Expect to travel on a Thursday or a Friday, depending on how far away the start location is from you. You're going to need all Friday to drive to be able to meet up that evening. And we all sit around the fire that first night. But really, when you meet is like 8 o'clock the next morning. So if you absolutely can't get off, but you can only spare a weekend for whatever, work obligations or other reasons that you have, if you can drive all night or something like that and meet us at 8 o'clock in the morning, or if you're close enough to make the drive, get up at 4 in the morning and make the drive there. I'm in Indiana, so I'm just outside Cincinnati. So for me, every one of these trips is like a 6 or 8 hour drive.
Right.
So I ended up taking a day on each end just to kind of recover and to get there. But for people that are in that Southeast, take a look at the website and look at those rides and where their locations are, because our start point is going to be right in there. The routes aren't published until you're on the ride. But once you sign up for the ride and you get your confirmation back and all that stuff, then they'll send you. Jonathan takes care of all that. He's the route planner, and he will send out a information. You'll have a video, a Zoom thing like what we're doing here, and we'll get on and talk about get a chance for everybody to meet. A little icebreaker sort of a time to introduce each other and meet. But he'll also go over he puts the slide. He's Air Force. He's got to do some slides. So he'll put together some slides and frequencies we're going to work on and what vehicle order is going to be there and all that kind of stuff. So
I have to say, when you guys were all getting ready to go on those trail rides, I don't know. I've not seen that many Jeeps all in one place outside of a dealership. That was crazy to me. It was really awesome to see. But there were a lot of Jeeps.
There are a lot of Toyotas too. So there's a mixed bag, and one of our guys that's a diehard Jeep guy, and I haven't seen him on a couple of rides, and I miss him because he's a cantankerous old bastard. And he's awesome. He's just awesome to hang around. But and he is old school Army, like 80s Army. So you get a whole nother flavor of how things were. But anyway, he put a bumper sticker on his because we were teasing him. He got Jonathan drives a Toyota, Seth drives a Toyota, Chad drives a Jeep, I drive a Jeep. So there's mixed crowd right in there, and they're always butting heads. And it's like, we'll go slow around the next turn so the Jeeps can kick up, or keep up. And then we'll tease them on the radio like, hey, we're about to go through some gravel here. Do you guys want to stop and lock them in? I mean, so we're constantly teasing each other on that stuff. But so his bumper sticker he put on the side of his car says, and for military, you guys will get this better than anybody. It says, why drive a Jeep, or why choose Jeep? Something like that, because terrorists drive Toyotas. And I'll tell you, it resonates. It resonates right away. We were like, the only thing I've seen come out of the window of a Jeep has been a wave. I've seen a lot of other shit like AKs and PKMs and other types of machine guns come out of the side of Toyotas. He makes a good point. That's all I'm saying. Hear him out.
That's pretty funny. I'm a Toyota fan. I have been a Toyota fan for years and years and years. Before I met my husband, I kind of converted him. I know it, right? I just love them. I love the Toyotas.
They make a good truck.
They do. And they usually have plenty of leg room and headroom for tall people. They've even managed to make the seat rise up for us shorties, so we can see over the dash. It's awesome. So I love
all things in a Jeep as well. I was trying to tell my wife she got an FJ Cruiser, and I'm looking at it's an FJ Cruiser. That is an FJ Cruiser. The old Jeep style FJ Cruiser was the first one to make it to Camp C at Kilimanjaro. I mean, it's a incredibly capable vehicle. So when we were getting this thing, I was like, so I'm pulling up the stats. I was like, I had a 4-door Jeep at the time, and I'm like, well, but it's attack angle. And I was like, well, okay, so the Jeep's a little better on the attack angle, but the clearance, the breakover on this thing. And then I looked at it, I was like, well, the Jeep's a little better by an inch or two on that one too, but the departure angle, and I was like, actually, the Jeep beats it now. So it's a great technologically advanced vehicle. I tell you, when we went on deployments, We get back, the parking lot of Fort Bragg was full of Tacomas because overseas, that's what a lot of us were driving. Like I drove one time. I've been in uniform one time for my deployments. Every other time I've been deployed over 22 years has been in civilian clothes. And we're in soft-sided vehicles. I'm driving a Land Cruiser or a Toyota something or other Hilux pickup truck, and you drive by every weird thing at the side of the road, and you just kind of cringe. You're like, it's not a roadside bomb. We're good. And then you keep going.
Keep going.
So there's a lot of, I peed a little, and then, yeah. And so there's a lot of those moments on every drive. Every trip down to the mall is exciting. Woo! But
I can imagine.
As I tried to take these vehicles, and it seems like some of these guys drive them like a rental, and they get back home and they're like, shit, man, we couldn't kill it. So they're in the parking lot now because they're like, but I had a Honda Civic as a kid. I closed my eyes and shut the door. It still feels like I'm in a Honda Civic. And I can't get over that. I want something American that's a little bit more robust. And
yeah, that's fair.
I've had both. Turncoat.
So, well, we talked about pretty much, I think, everything that I can think of. So for all of you out there in the chats or listening, if you have questions for Brian, go ahead, throw those out there. And we're going to kind of start wrapping things up. I posted up there Brian's email, brian@mindoverland.org. Or if you're interested in going to the website, you can go to mindoverland.org and you can see some additional information. Jova Q, good evening. How are you? Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for joining us in the conversation. So just kind of a last thought. I know you talked about different resources for those looking to transition back into civilian life, which is awesome. Thank you for that. What other insights, I guess, or words of wisdom would you have for somebody who is considering joining the military?
Oh, joining the military. I was in my head. We were going in another direction with that, but
I know. We've got two. That's the first, and then then we've got the opposite. So
the first thing, I think it was one of the pivotal things for me, at least, is consider what that job, and this is the macabre, dark. Get into that what do they call it? The hangman gallows humor. That dark humor that the military has. You're about to go on patrol, so I'm like, well, hey, Carol Lee, if you get blown up, can I have your radio? That's just the way we deal and process with that stress and anxiety of being in a job where, if you saw that movie Gladiators, where they're all just kind of hanging out, and they're just waiting for their time to die. I mean, we don't look at it that way, but you got to be good with that. And I think part of that is expectation management. And when you join a job, like, for example, my stepdad that was in the military in Vietnam, he's like, we're looking at different jobs. I was like, well, what about helicopter crew chief? That sounds pretty cool. I get to fly around on helicopters all day. And he was like, yeah, but that in combat translates to door gunner, and that guy lasts about 60 seconds, depending on the situation. So I think it's important to every training and every decision and every aspect, you look at it from a what if I have to do this in combat? What if I have to do this for real type of situation? And we would have guys, you're going to fight as you train. So make sure that you train as you fight. But expectation management going into it is a big deal. It's a big part of that. Like every time you put the little laser lights on the front of your weapon and you play a giant game of laser tag with blanks and real weapons. And that sends a laser blast at you and lets you know whether or not you've been hit. You wear a vest that has receivers on it, Miles gear, they call it. Here's the thing though, you can hide from that behind bushes, but you can't hide from a real AK-47 or a real round behind bushes. So if you train yourself in that environment, not to hide from the laser light, but to hide from a real bullet, that's concealment, take cover. Cover keeps a bullet from hitting you. Concealment keeps an eye from seeing you. So if you think about those kind of things, when you're thinking about joining the military, think, okay, I'm not joining for the college. I'm not joining for all the perks and bennies that come to me. Think about what they're going to ask you to do on behalf of that. Otherwise, you might have just the next 4, 5, 6 years of misery because you're locked into that contract. They're not going to let you out of it. So consider those things because our Army works as well as it does. And I've worked with the British, the Romanian, just lists. I've worked with a lot of different militaries. Nobody does it exactly the way we do. And the secret to why our military is as strong as it is because nobody was forced. You're not a conscript. You're not a draftee, not yet. And so you're here because you wanted to be here. So at some point you gotta like, look, man, you're sleeping in the bed you made. Stop bitching about it and learn to make the best out of it, because every opportunity is an opportunity. And if you look at it like, well, I'm stuck in this unit. Well, what can you make out of it? I got stuck on a duty one time because if we had a vehicle, I wanted to be licensed on it. I wanted to be able to drive it. We had a weapon, I wanted to be proficient in it. We had a piece of equipment, I wanted to know how it worked. Whether or not I was assigned it or not, it didn't matter. But what that ended up being is I was now a driver that was licensed on every vehicle in our battalion, licensed on a trailer, licensed on generators, and licensed to carry hazmat, so I can transport ammo. So what does that land me as an E4? I got stuck on ammo detail at a range. My whole unit gets to go do training and fun stuff. They go to the range, they go back, they do other stuff, and I'm stuck just ferrying ammo back and forth. But the commander had a 3-day pass for anybody that qualified expert with a weapon, assigned or otherwise. So every time I took ammo to a range, I'd talk them into letting me shoot, because they usually qualify their cadre first, and then all the people show up, and I'm out there before all of that. So I show up and I walk away from either an opportunity or a shit duty, but I walk away with expert in an M16 or A2 at the time, expert in a 9mm, expert on a 50 cal, expert on the it was M60 and 240. We were using a squad automatic weapon at that time. I even got to shoot a Bradley. I got to shoot the gun. I didn't do the qualification tables, but I got to shoot the gun on a Bradley. I mean, that big 25, the Bushmaster. So expert on grenade, a bunch of stuff that if I had gone with my unit, it would have been one assigned weapon. That would have been it. I would have done that and grenade. And I came home with 5, 6, whatever 3-day passes because of that. So it all depends. You can take no and you can stop, but don't take no for an answer, and don't look at your assignment as a shit duty. Find a way to make opportunity out of that. And yeah, that would be my advice. Do your homework.
And do your homework. I think
Talk
that's
to vets.
key too. Yep.
Talk to vets and realize you might be talking to a guy that is just absolutely, a lot of us have this real jaded, like you're going to the military and it's going to be a bunch of time in the motor pool and painting bumper numbers and it sucks. Yeah, that was my first unit. But that very first unit was also working with Joint Special Operations Command and other guys and Delta guys and 1st to the 10th SF, and getting to do a mission that no one else in my unit got a chance to do. So yeah, I mean, you want to look at it like doom and gloom, that's your attitude. Attitude determines altitude. And if you want to make something good, then that's up to you. Make something good.
That's fair. So Killian asked, of course, this is a question that he asks every one of the guests. Have you ever worked next to a Marine other than Force or anyone at the JSOC level? Yes.
Yeah, and the thing about the Marine Corps, which is weird, is they rotate guys into. So if you're a Raider, or that's a new thing. But if you're recon and you go to MARSOC or something like that, they may rotate you out into the regular Marines and then rotate another guy in. I thought that was kind of strange. But we had a good buddy that was at Bragg that was a commo guy and is working at USASOC, working at the JSOC compound, and then he just got plucked. And they said, nope, you're going back to regular Marines. But I've worked next to Marines on the human side, because where I work in mostly capital cities, like I deployed to Afghanistan, it was Kabul at first. And the embassy team, the HET team at Kabul, I'm still in touch with a lot of those dudes. Friendship forged in fire are generally pretty good friends. I've got a handful of guys that I can call and I say, look, man, I really screwed up. And they're like, we're on our way with a shovel and some plastic and an alibi. We got your back. And they will not ask anything else about it. They don't want to know if it's a lover. I think the only thing that would get me in trouble is they show up at the house and it's my wife, because most of them have known me for 15 years. They've known my wife for 6 months or one meeting. And they're like, listen, they turn to her and they're like, if he ever makes you cry, we will kick the ever loving shit out of him. And I'm like, dude, where's the loyalty, right? But So, and other than it's her body, I could probably call them on anything and they're going to be there. And those are friendships forged in deployments and in fire and something that really tested us. But Eli Smith is probably one of the more senior ranking. He's probably retired by now, but I meet him as a captain running a head team. And the next time I meet him, I'm working for Customs and Border Protection. And my supervisor had never been in the military is going to introduce me to some guys. And we're at the Marine Corps, the barracks that they've got down at MAGTF at Dam Neck, Virginia, and she's going to introduce me as the new HUMIT program manager for CBP. Well, we're going to a place where they host for all the people that run clandestine HUMIT schools and stuff like that. And I was like, I didn't tell her. It's arrogant for me to go, I probably know more people there than you do. But it was weird when we're all waiting on the MAGTF commander and I didn't know who it was. And then the MAGTF commander, I had 2 Marines that already told me no on getting their course material and seeing some of their POI. And then Eli walks in and I'm sitting in the middle of a bunch of chairs and Eli walks, the first thing he said, he walks right in. He doesn't say hi, greetings, any of that stuff. He walks through everybody and comes right after me, a big handshake and a hug. And he goes, man, brother, I haven't seen you in a long time. And that's when I turned to my boss and I was like, yeah, so I know this guy. And, and then next thing you know, the Marines are like, hey, whatever you need, man. If Colonel Smith thinks it's cool, we got it. And they opened the doors. I ended up extending my TDY to stay an extra day. But yeah, I've worked with several Marines, good people for the most part. There's a lot of hype after you become a staff sergeant. You don't have to do organized PT. So they get all those commercials where the guys are out there running with them. Yeah, there's one dude and he's the one that just pulled the shit duty and has to go jog with the lower enlisted. But the rest of them do PT on their own. It's a joke. And I've never seen a Marine slay a dragon in his dress blues, but
I know, but it looks nice.
Oh, it briefs well. Yeah, it briefs well, but.
So Jim says, Brian, thank you for your service and continued public service. You're truly a good person and patriot for giving, sacrificing, and helping others. Great advice. Great talk. Bless you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we absolutely have loved having you on the show. And I know we've talked a little bit, Brian and I, about Seth and about Chad. And even about Jonathan, all individuals that are part of Mind Overland. And you guys are going to get to meet. I'm going to have a special show with both Seth and Chad together. And that's going to be on the 10th at 6 o'clock. So make sure y'all set everything so you don't miss the show. Hit the notification buttons. So but yeah, we're super excited. I was really thankful for you to come on and give us a little insight into yourself and kind of what you've endured, what kind of advice you have, and what kind of resources that you have for people. Because here you are, you've got, you've lived all of this, you've gone through all of this, and you still have made yourself, your life a success. And I think that that's really what it comes down to is, how can we help other veterans feel like they have succeeded? And so I appreciate that. I don't see any other questions out there. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So Brian, if you want to just hang tight here while we get that live show under wraps, and let's get a little bit of music here. See if I can remember how to do that.
Go out big.
I know it. Here we go. There you go.
I should have more hair.
I know.
Something's.
I'll give myself whiplash. That's what happens when we get this old. So, all right, everybody. Everybody, thanks again for coming in and joining us and all the questions. And we will be right here again Sunday night, 6 p.m. Be sure to get your buddies, get your friends. If you know any veterans, get them out here so that they can learn about some of the resources. I posted 2 new resources for any Nevada veterans. Those are out there in the links as well. And I'll get Mind Overland put out there as well for people. So DJ Play Nice, thank you so much for joining. Jim, thank you. Jova Q, thank you very much. Jillian, always great to have you here. And Misty Mrs. Wayne, thank you. Ron Wayne, thank you. Did I miss anybody? let's see, Jason, of course, thank you. And Caleb, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Hopefully we will see you again next week. All right, everybody. Y'all have a great night. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.